I was at that weird threshold where I didn't have to be sedated. So I remember everything.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's important about my COVID experience. I remember everything I dealt with versus dealing with a lot of it in like practically an induced paralyzation. Because this is something else that, and I have to say, non-political, but a lot of my friends, very close friends of mine, unfortunately, still want to make this political and will call and be like, okay, so you had really bad COVID, but please tell me you're not going to get the vaccine. Or I know you had really bad COVID, but please tell me you're not going to be one of the maskers. Well, first of all, I always did wear a mask, which I guess there's an argument there because my friends say, well, see, you wore a mask and you still got COVID. Yeah, okay. I mean,
but we
think I got, by the way, I almost forgot to say this. We think I got COVID because I fucked up. Man, Chris, I don't know if we're going to delete all this swearing. I'm doing this more than usual lately. See, this is a more personal podcast for me. I messed up and wore a mask that was in my truck after my truck was delivered from a repair shop. I'm not going to say the name of the shop. And, they're nice enough to porter our stuff back and forth. But when I put the mask on, it smelled like cherries. Okay. And I don't smell like cherries. I'm a manly dude. I don't vape. I don't do anything. I don't smell like cherries. Sometimes my mask smells like shit, which that's a problem in itself, I guess. But either way, I know the way my mask smells. I put this mask on and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I wore it like a dumbass anyways. That was on a Wednesday. And I spiked a fever on a Friday. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about viral load right now, because this is important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to explain to people about viral load and how bad you can get COVID with a high viral load.
So this is something that in the beginning, when there were so many nurses, especially like nurses in New York, I mean, they got pounded. And some of this also, to be very real, is that we didn't have PPE. Okay. So like where I was at, I was really fortunate. Like we always were provided with stuff, but like N95s back in the day, before COVID, we would wear an N95 once, throw it away. So if you had TB and I was in your room, I would put the mask on, come out of your room, throw it away. Now we were in such a shortage of N95s. And again, we were lucky here in the, Illinois area, but we wear them all the time. So you wear them for a day, 2 days, get them, they reprocess them, stuff like that. But in New York and other places, I don't think they were so lucky because they were just getting hit with so much. But like a lot of those healthcare providers were getting really, really sick. And if anyone followed the news and stuff, you would hear things about a viral load. So what they're saying is that at different points of your illness, you're kind of shedding the virus differently, right? So when you come in and you're going to get like the breathing tube in, you're at like a bad point and you're very contagious. So all these healthcare providers are like right up in your business. They're getting hit with a huge viral load that's making them really, really sick. So something I kept saying to Joe that I'm curious about is like, he got it, Julia got it. Julia, I imagine, got it from him. Now she's younger also, so that plays into it. But I almost wonder if just the viral load he spread was less, and wherever he got it from, someone shed a huge viral load on him, whether it was they were just way more contagious at the time that they saw him, or if it was something like there was like saliva on your mask, or, I've been trying, me and Joe have talked about this a lot. I always kind of am really curious where he got it. Was he with somebody who was sick and he had a mask on, but they still somehow spit a particle and it went in his eye? But I just feel like that does play a role into it. And I think sometimes too, so you go to the store and people are like, maybe you get it from the store. You're going to have it less most likely than somebody that was sitting right next to somebody with really, really bad COVID, all because of the difference in the viral load. So it's basically like what someone's shedding to you.
Yeah. Well, let's look at how my household got it, right? Julia got it, like you said, 2 days. Gretchen got it. And, she didn't even think she was sick at first. Now, the irony with that is I lost my taste, only lost my smell for a couple of days. The weirdness for me was, and I have a really strong sense of smell. We won't really go into that, but it's a crazy sense of smell. I mean, to the point where I was worried I had brain cancer because I could smell things way better than I feel like I'm like part werewolf or something. But to
be fair, I don't know if that's a symptom of brain cancer, by the way.
No, they because they said when you have an acute sense, so if you can like smell something really good, or you have like taste is amplified, it could be a small brain tumor. because it changes the way your
all right, the way your
whatever child works, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, but thankfully I didn't, you know. So, but I'm telling you, I'm going to sound crazy, but I think I'm on to something with this like cherry sweet smell because there came a point where like I was kind of quarantining. So like right at the beginning, I was like hardcore quarantining. And then once my fever went away, I was like, I would kind of like be around. And at this point, Gretchen was just tired of like the mass quarantine, but she smelled like cherries to me, which is what made me say to Gretchen, like, hey, you know, you kind of smell like cherries. You say you don't feel really good. You should go get a COVID test. And we fought about it for like 2 days. Gretchen's like, I'm not sick. And it actually goes to show like how little she was hit. Gretchen's a smoker, you know, she's a vegetarian. And I always say people assume vegetarians are healthy eaters. And I mean, if she listens to this podcast, she'd be so pissed at me, but I'll deal with the repercussions. But she eats like shit. Okay. I mean, like I'll be having like a piece of steak and some broccoli and some mashed potatoes for dinner. And she'll take like tortillas and pour cheddar cheese on them and Taco Bell hot sauce. And that's her dinner. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? You know, I'm the guy that battles my weight. Like this doesn't even seem fair, you know? But anyway, so hardly got it. I mean, like hardly anything. My neighbor, it's important to say, unfortunately, I led with what happened. I gave him COVID. That night we hung out on Friday. He was sick Sunday. Here's what's crazy. He's a little older than me, but physically, if you look at him, he's in better shape than I am. Works out all the time. He's a runner. Matter of fact, this guy's pretty amazing. He told me the other day, like he could run a 4-minute and 6-second mile in college, or 4 minutes 16. And to be an Olympic runner, you got to be like 4 minutes. So, and this guy still runs all the time. That's how healthy he is, which is kind of crazy too, by the way. He had a blockage. That's a whole nother conversation. But the, you know, but he gets it. And what was weird was talking about the viral load, Vic. Him and I went and picked up his son in his car together. I was in the front seat, and Cam and I had to wait. It didn't make sense to drive back, so we like sat in the parking lot and talked for an hour. So his son was in the car with us in the back seat. Son never got COVID. Cameron and I got it. Cameron was it 1 or 2 days? I actually kind of forget now. He was either 1 or 2 days behind me on my ER visit. So he ended up in the ER. Ended up on the same steroids I did. I mean, almost got it like the same, except he wasn't coughing up blood, you know? And then his ended about a week earlier than mine did, you know? But viral load. I mean, truly, I think it's
that definitely plays into it. There's actually some other like research that they're trying to do too about like blood type. I honestly haven't like read too much into that to like see like, you know, what they're saying, but like they say certain blood types might get hit worse and have it worse. And then, you know, I don't know how old Cameron's son is, but like, you think about it too, they're saying that like the younger kids do fine, right? That's why like these like college age kids are like, okay, like, I don't care that I'm going to get it because I'm going to be okay. And even like the young, like younger population, like my kids are like all school age. Like when they get it, they don't do that bad. And you don't, you know, you hear on the news occasionally about like, you know, like there was like some 16-year-old that got it that didn't do well. And there's like, you know, a couple other school age kids that they'll report that are just got really, really sick. But overall, kids kind of just handle it different for whatever reason. Now, it could be, you know, they're used to dealing with new strains of things because they're used to seeing it. So they just fight it different. But that's something else too that kind of plays into it. So that's something with COVID is that there's just so many things that play into it. And actually, from my point of view, I think that's what makes it the most scary, right? Like, because you don't know. Like, you don't know if I get it, how am I going to fare? Am I going to be one that's like, I lost my taste and my smell and I was fine? Or am I going to be one that ends up on the vent and ECMO machine? You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I started saying some of my friends calling and asking about the vaccine or whatever. Here's my take on that. And everybody needs to know, Vicky and I have had some really in-depth conversations on this also. And believe it or not, she has like, you know, you have a trepidatious perspective even sometimes with it, but you know,
I mean,
you know,
I can conspiracy theory things all day if people want to. I mean, I'm a pretty like open-minded thinker. Like, so I think that's some of the reason me and you have such good conversations because, you could like listen to what other people have to say and walk down their path with them. And then even if you're like, yeah, I don't think so, you can still, have that. So, I mean, yeah, like there are some questions I had about the vaccine, even as a healthcare provider when it first came out and things, but.
But here's what I said after I had COVID, and I've been like telling Vicky, get the vaccine, because before I had COVID, I would have been like, I'm gonna wait. I'll let some other people be a guinea pig. We'll see what happens to that.
Don't worry, they made the healthcare providers guinea pigs anyway. So
yeah, I know what
you're welcome, all of you.
I mean, if the vaccine is bad, we will literally in 10 or 15 years all die of simple illnesses, and we won't have any police or paramedics
or fire or healthcare. Yeah, because we got it first.
In the corner, like not being able to move, and their arms are going to fall off, and
politicians. We won't have any of those.
But now, see that could be the good thing that comes out of all this, actually. Or at least the career ones that are like 86 years old,
right,
and are still trying to make decisions for 25 and 40-year-olds. They were like. They were getting brought to school in a horse-drawn carriage, and they're trying to talk about climate change while they were smelling horse shit the whole way to school.
Yeah.
I don't know how that goes, But anyways, I said we're not going to get political. But the thing about it is, except that's the one thing about politics I think we could all agree on. Like, get those fuckers out of there. Too old. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Everybody else retires when they're 60.
Right. But it's like all these big politicians, they start when they're ready to retire. Why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, all right. So, man, I lost my train of thought. So, but what I said was I'm 6'4", still 275 because I gained all my weight back, and I'm going to be cutting in line. I'm going to be throwing motherfuckers out of my way so I can get to the front of the line to get my vaccine, because I am not worried about anything that's going to happen from that. Because for a month and a half of my life, it was the most ill I've ever been. About the only illness, I think, where they say, don't come around me, stay in your room. So it's like, there's all sorts of illnesses I've had. I've had broken arms, broken legs. I've had the stomach flu that they're like, okay, you're not contagious anymore. You've been puking, your fever's over, go about your business. And you still feel like shit, but you can do whatever you want. With COVID, it's like this. You're sick. You're still coughing, stay quarantined. You're sick. You just had a fever, stay quarantined. You're confused, you might still have COVID, stay quarantined. It's a month of my life that was just like, stay in your room. Okay. Now, for some people, maybe that's a dream come true. They'll sit on Xbox or PlayStation all day and they'll become the best at Madden in the world, and they'll fucking make money playing Madden. I am not that guy. I'm like, I gotta go, man. I got place to be. I could be in Texas. Oh my God, there was just a merger with a competitor. Why didn't I get that merger? Probably because I had COVID. This can't happen anymore. I'm getting the vaccine. Getting it, no problem. You guys can track me. If you see on the podcast my ear falls off, we'll have a podcast about my ear falling off because of the vaccine. Whatever we want. But I'm getting it.
I do want to add, even if we're gonna conspiracy theory a little with the tracking. Really, people, we all have cell phones and watches.
Yeah, if you're worried about tracking, throw all your devices away. Right. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
We have Alexa. We have everything. Like, I mean, really, they're tracking us. We don't need the vaccine for that.
Yeah, they probably know what we're talking about right now. I'm going to get a phone call from a 85-year-old politician explaining why he's brighter than I am, or she.
Right.
Probably if they're 85, it's probably still a he. But because that was before things have changed. But anyways, anyways, I'm going to get it. So that's the other thing I want to tell people, to put it at rest, so nobody messages me after this, like people have been doing, saying, just please tell me you're not going to get the vaccine. I'm thinking, how did you not hear I almost died? Why do you think I wouldn't get the vaccine? I mean, you bet your ass, if the flu almost kills me after I've had COVID, I'll get the fucking flu shot every year too. Because if it makes me 10% more likely to live, I'm going to get it. If it makes me 1% more likely, I'll probably get it. And that's another thing. When me and Cam were both in the hospital, and then I'm thinking, well, am I going to get vented? One of the things that you told me before I ever had COVID, that was the scariest thing that I don't think anybody talks about, is if you got in a car accident, if you have COVID, no matter what it is, didn't you tell me, like, once you're on a vent, what are your odds of coming off? Isn't there a percentage?
No, I don't have a percentage, but if you have a car accident and you're on an event, like you could come off. Like COVID's a little different though. Like,
okay.
I mean, we see people come off the ventilator. There are a lot of successful stories, but there are also a lot that aren't success stories, you know? So,
so would you say it's 50-50, 75-25?
I don't even know if I could give it a percentage because I don't know. But there are a lot more people that don't come off the vent with COVID than like everything else. So, you know, I mean, like my normal job is a trauma ICU. So we get a lot of car accidents, gunshot wounds, falls, things like that. You know, if you were young and healthy, and even if you had lung injuries, like you'll eventually come off the ventilator. I mean, you might end up with a trach and an event rehab for a while. But, you know, COVID's a little bit different. Some of these people aren't coming off the vents ever because their lungs are so stiff that they never get better. You know, I mean, I'm sure if people follow the news, some places are starting to do double lung transplants because they're like, okay, it's, you know, it's COVID. We can't fix the lungs. You were too sick. Let's try a lung transplant and see how you do, you know? So I think COVID just messes with people worse and they don't necessarily come off the vent. They get sick and they die. And that's why COVID has so many deaths. And even though most people overcome COVID, people also die from COVID. A lot of them.
So this must have been one where Google was my enemy because I could have swore I saw something on Google that like once you're put on a vent, you basically have a like 1 in 3 people come off, like 33% chance of surviving.
So you may be right. You may be right. I have not looked into that data, so I don't want to speak, but you might be right.
See, Vicky is such a medical professional. She will not comment to anything unless she sees it. Can you imagine our world on Facebook if people actually did that? And actually looked some shit up before they comment on it. I mean, I'm going to quote the Google, and Google told me 1 in 3. You know, so if I'm wrong,
I feel 1 in 3 could be accurate.
On the other hand, I Googled where Mitch Trubinsky was going, and they said he was getting traded to Kansas City, and I was all pissed off, and then found out that was fake. So I shouldn't have put so much trust in Google because that was also Google. Google led me way down a dark path there. I started a whole conversation about it and had to retract my statements. It was difficult, you know. but anyways, well,
I think something else, you know, like I want to get a little bit of a healthcare point across. I'm going to use your platform. Something you say about just having to be isolated to your room that I think like people need to realize that are just out there living life saying COVID's not that bad. Try being in an ICU and dying alone. So who do you get? You get me, who you've never met before you came to the hospital. That sucks pretty bad. And I think that's something that people can never understand that unless you're in that situation. So I think that nurses get it, obviously, because we're the ones there. But even if you're dying of COVID, your family still does not get to come with you. They don't. We could be like, we know they're going to die, but you still can't come. So that's something else. You know, I think I like that you touched on all those feelings with COVID because I think that's what the general public misses. But any nurse, ICU, floor, it doesn't matter. If they're working in a hospital and they're working with COVID, you're seeing some like sad stuff because it's not normal and people don't get to come and they're isolated in those rooms alone. I have to put on so much gear to get in there. So I can't even get in there as fast as normal. Everything's really different with COVID. So I think just people need to keep that in mind too, when they walk around and say, you don't need to wear a mask, even if you don't believe in it, like just kind of respect, right? Like just respect other people and wear a mask. And the mask kind of goes into that viral load. Because that's what they say, that if you have it, you're going to spread less of a viral load because the mask is going to keep it in a little.
Yeah, I was just telling a friend of mine, and he's actually a really good friend of mine. So, I mean, it is, I mean, the thing about me with my friends is everybody's entitled to their own opinion. You know? Yeah. I'm an opinionated person, but you can have your opinion too, and I still love you. That was one of the things that I said was, you know, a mask doesn't guarantee you're not going to get it, much like maybe the vaccine won't guarantee you're not going to get it. But what it does do is makes it where it maybe you won't get it as bad, you know? And the thing about it is if I could have had COVID like Julia, I'd be like, hey, I'm immune now for a few months and I was only sick for 3 days. Giddy up, let's roll. You know, I just didn't have that response, you know? And, you know, so there's something to be said there. And, you know, the other thing that I thought you shared me something on Instagram or shared something to me on Instagram and it was, is that girl a professional? I mean, you know, she sounded intelligent as hell.
I feel she's got to be somewhere in the healthcare field. And I almost wonder if it's some sort of, You know, I mean, she seemed to know kind of a lot about vaccines.
Yeah.
Just if someone wants a very layman's term of how this vaccine works also, they're putting messenger RNA that basically is teaching your body, COVID like has like a crown, like the COVID bacteria. So it's teaching your body to identify that.
You said bacteria.
Yeah, the virus. The virus. It's a virus that has like a crown. So you say like, it's teaching your body to fight that. So yeah, you might get the vaccine and you might still get COVID, but the hope is that you will never be as bad as you would have been because your body already learned how to fight it. So your body's going to be like, oh yeah, I know how to deal with this. And it's just, that's going to be that. So, that's something else too, because I hear people a lot of time talking, being like, oh, I'm going to have my 2 vaccines and then I'm going to be immune. You're teaching your body how to fight COVID. So let's everyone, you know, that wants to get vaccinated. But like we, you know, it's like,
it's like keeping you, it's like saying you might still get COVID, but the chances of you dying from it are less.
Yes.
You know? And I think that's
you might not even have symptoms. You might be like, you might have developed such a strong immune response with the vaccine that you come in contact with COVID and you do fine. But, you know, I think people sometimes are like, well, it's only 95% effective. Well, it's because it's just teaching your body and it's still the way your body's going to react. But, you know, like, yeah, maybe you're not going to be the one. Even let's say if Joe had the vaccine, maybe if he got it again, he would get it like Julia had it, you know? So that's kind of some of it too. Like,
yeah, I'd be ecstatic.
Right.
If I got COVID again and just got that, I'd be like, woo, winning, you know?
So the hope is that even if the COVID vaccine still has COVID, at least then you're maybe not going to get it as bad. So if you even think about it that way, like at least maybe you won't end up as sick as Joe or as sick as people I see in the hospital on a ventilator alone.
Well, and this is why I asked if that girl is a professional, because she was talking about stuff that sounded so over my head, but she could have been speaking in Greek and I wouldn't have known any better. But the one thing she said that didn't sound like Greek to me that made the best sense, and I wanted to kind of like paraphrase it, is she was like, and for all you young people that are coming on my social media and telling me I'm an idiot and hating on me, here's what I can tell you. History shows, for all you young people that push shit off and say it's not going to affect me because I'm young and healthy, nothing ever good comes of this, because one thing that does catch up is time. And one day you'll be in your 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s and COVID's going to fucking kill you. So stop hating on the people that don't want to get COVID, because you're one of the people that it doesn't make a difference. And when she said that, I literally was like, I wish I could actually send this girl a message, because I'm not an Instagram person. You just shared it with me, and tell her, hell yes. Like, that's actually how I feel now, you know, because it's important to say that I was actually kind of one of those assholes, because I was like, I'm 41. I play volleyball 4 nights a week. You know,
so
I feel like I could lift a car if I had to, if you got trapped under. That's the way my mentality is.
But you were respectful. Like, I mean, you were in my house one day and mom and dad were here and you kept your mask on. So I think, you know, even though, you were out and still doing things, like you weren't just being like a total, like, oh, well, like, I don't care about anyone, you know? And I think that's, you know, I think that's who she was trying to get at. Those people that are young and are like, I don't care because I'm fine. Like, you know, but you might have been living your life, but you weren't just reckless with it all.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's important to say. I mean, and I still am living my life. I mean, next week I have to go to Texas, and I'm going to go to Texas. You know, you might be mad at me, you know, or might be upset that I'm going, but I have to. You know, I'm going to go, and I'll take the precautions. So the big thing for me is, like, I tell everybody, like, I don't expect anybody to not live your life. One of the worst things about COVID is being quarantined and not living my life. So why would I recommend to anybody to not live your life? But the recommendation is, you know, realize that even if you get the vaccine and you have a reaction, or, you know, you wear a mask and it makes your face break out a little. I mean, these are all things that I hear. At the end of the day, those are all things that are much better than the alternative. And I see myself, like I said, is lucky, you know, because I think that, you know, like you had said, Vic, like we were 2 days ahead of it, right? 2 days later, I might've been gone. And there was somebody that I knew on Facebook that got COVID when I did, and she died, you know, she was in the hospital and all of her messages looked exactly the same. You know, this friend of mine that I played volleyball with, she was sharing. She was it was one of her close friends. And, you know, the messages were the same. People being like, you're strong, you've got this. And the girl messaging back being like, yeah, I've got this. I'll be okay. I'll see you soon. And all of a sudden, that's it. You know, you get the message on Facebook that she didn't make it. She was gone. You know, so she went from sending somebody text messages saying she'll be okay to not being around, which tells me she didn't even make it to the event. Like all of a sudden she went from being okay to one day not, and lights out, you know?
Yeah.
So anyways, well, I think that pretty much loops us through. Chris, did I miss anything? I think I covered it all. Chris's whole point was going to be to make sure that I didn't miss anything from our conversation and I covered everything I wanted to get out. So Chris, what do you think? Did I hit it in one take or what?
Yeah, you nailed it.